Hi everybody, I'm Francie from Investment Properties Global, and this is our third video in our series on capital gains tax with Ben from A.H. Jackson and Co, Chartered Accountants. How are you doing, Ben?
Good, thank you, Francie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now that we've covered the capital gains tax, I want to dig deeper into the permanent place of residence, if it's okay with you.
Yes.
Is it possible to have more than one permanent place of residence?
Good question, Francie, and this is a question that is asked by quite a number of our clients over time, particularly when they are upgrading a family home.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you can have two principal place of residence for up to a 6-month period,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you are not renting the original principal place of residence out. So
Okay.
the intention is that you are looking to sell that.
Mm-hmm.
So it can remain your principal place of residence along with the new property for
Until-
up to 6 months. After those 6 months, then specific circumstances apply. And I would suggest if that was to be the case, then they should talk to the tax advisor around what the capital gains implications may be.
Yes, because each situation may be different.
Each situation is different, correct?
Yes. Another question, what happens if a taxpayer is absent from that permanent place of residence on holiday or whatever circumstance?
So another good question, one that can come up quite regularly. So when a particular client's on holidays out of the country for a period of time, that property will still continue to be their main residence because it's maintained as their main residence with regards to storage of all of their family items and equipment there, and as we spoke about in a previous video, the addresses are still there for them with regards to government agencies and everyone getting in contact with them.
Yes.
One of the more common events of someone being away from their main residence is when they're redeployed from a work point of view, so interstate, overseas, with the view that they're not coming back for a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the option to rent that property out at that particular point in time without it affecting your capital gains exemption as a main residence, as long as you do not establish another main residence. So
Yes.
an example of that might be someone is sent to Sydney for work for a period of 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
If they go to Sydney and they're renting a property down in Sydney, they have not established another main residence, they have not purchased another one. Their property in Brisbane that's being rented out to a third party can remain being their main residence.
But
Yeah.
as soon as you purchase another property and use that property as your permanent place of residence, you lose that exemption.
Correct, and that's where the partial exemption comes in, that property, the one in Brisbane, was your main residence up until the time that you purchase, for example, the Sydney property, and the capital gains can be calculated as a partial exemption from that point of view. Now, just to flow on a little bit further from that example, you can have your main residence exemption for a 6-year period without living in the dwelling, i.e. renting it out, again, as long as you don't establish another main residence. And that 6-year rule can be recycled, meaning you may come back from Sydney and reside in Brisbane again, back in your main residence, and then are redeployed to Melbourne. The 6-year rule starts again because you've come back to reside in your residence.
Okay, that makes sense. What if the taxpayer and his or her spouse live in different residences?
So, from a family point of view, you're only allowed to have one main residence. It's I suppose relatively rare for a husband and wife probably to be living in separate residences, unless of course they are redeployed for work or something of that nature. Common example could be where two people get together later in life, they've both got main residences, they commence a de facto relationship or get married, a decision then needs to be made which of those properties will be their main residence moving forward. And again, specific circumstances warrant probably a discussion with a tax advisor to determine what's best for that couple moving forward.
Well, thank you, Ben.
Not a
This really is very clear, and I'm sure it's easy to understand for the listeners as well. If you want to know more, please leave a comment below and I'll get you in touch with Ben. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Francie.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.